presentation, How to Love the World by Susa Silvermarie. My work is loving the world, declares the great contemporary poet Mary Oliver in a poem called Messenger. To hearten and steady us during the current climate of cynicism, Susa Silvermarie will give us Oliver's and others' poetry in an inspirational program called How to Love the World. Spoken word artist Silvermarie is a new permanent resident of Ajijic. She is widely published and an anthologized writer known for her own original work that delights the senses while calling the spirit. She has written an ebook, Tales from My Teachers, on the Alzheimer's unit. She invites you to visit her at her website, which is susasilvermarie.com. susasilvermarie.com. Let's please welcome Susa Silvermarie.
When death comes like a hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes, I want to walk through that door full of curiosity, wondering what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness. And so I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility, and I think of each life as a flower, common as a field daisy, and as singular, and each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending as all music does toward silence, and each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was a bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular or real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. That was Mary Oliver inviting all of us to come to this moment where we really aren't visitors. We're all natives. Every one of us native earthlings. And in these turbulent times, since the elections, particularly last November, a lot of us earthlings are feeling that it's a struggle to stay steady, a struggle to keep our hearts open. In November, it was poetry that spoke to my confusion and my grief, my anger, my disbelief. And now as we begin to inhabit this new chapter in history, it's poetry that becomes a voice of resistance, really. But what does poetry resist? It resists hopelessness. Poetry resists alienation. For me, the big one is poetry resists cynicism. And the things I'm presenting today are just as much for myself as for all of you. Poetry reminds us that we have to witness and testify. In the Bertolt Brecht line, he says, "In the dark times, will there be singing?" Yes, there will be singing about the dark times. But how? How do we sing in the dark times? Well, I know that hope and joy are more sustaining than fear, that scaring people is like giving kids sugar. You get this burst of activity and then they crash. And movements that run on fear and anger, same thing. Energy and then nothing. So what we need now for singing in the dark times is hope and joy. And I'm here this morning to publicly affirm that they can't have my joy. As Margaret Swedish says, joy is my supreme act of defiance. It's the wellspring from which I drink of the wonder that is this planet, and from which I find sustenance and strength for the work ahead. You know, as native earthlings, what we need to do is make ceremony. We need to get up every morning with the sense that we are in permanent ceremony to make the earth heal, to help one another to have the wisdom to act. And we need to do it all with the joy that can sing a new future into being. Well, that brings me back to Mary Oliver, who has spoken of poetry as a life-cherishing force, saying, poems are not words, after all, but fires for the cold, ropes let down for the lost. Mary Oliver is a Pulitzer Prize-winning poet, a National Book Award winner, an extraordinary person. But you know what? She's also an ordinary person who gets up every morning and goes for a walk. A person who, in her 80s now, is grieving the loss of a life partner. She's one of the ordinary people Joanna Macy means when she says, if the world is to be healed by human efforts, it will be by ordinary people. Those whose love for the world is even greater than their fear. And that's the kind of ordinary I'm hoping all of us will become. This morning you're going to hear Oliver's poems rather than read them. You'll receive the poems at the level of their language and meaning, of course, but also at this healing level of sound. I invite us all as open circle thinkers this morning to deliberately open to receive also the power of sound. What I'm inviting you to do is to listen with your whole bodies, not just your cerebrum. And how do you do that? Well, it requires the imagination. You can open the pores of your skin and let the sound come in through those 1,000 doors. You can imagine your body into the shape of a giant ear. And it's time for us to practice listening beneath language as well. And I'm honored this morning to be a conduit for some of the healing sound of Oliver's poems. Between pieces, I would like to ask that you hold your response, because for poetry we need the pause of silence to absorb. Messenger. My work is loving the world. Here the sunflower, there the hummingbird. Here the quickening yeast, there the blue plums. Here the clam deep in the speckled sand. Are my boots old? Is my coat torn? Am I no longer young and still not half perfect? Let me keep my mind on what matters, which is my work, which is mostly standing still and learning to be astonished. The phoebe, the delphinium, the sheep in the pasture, which is mostly rejoicing since all the ingredients are here, which is gratitude to be given a mind and a heart and these body clothes, and a mouth with which to give shouts of joy to the moth and the wren and the sleepy dug-up clam. My work is loving the world. The summer day. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass and is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous, complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down in the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? That's one of her more well-known poems. And what if what we did with each of our one wild and precious lives is what cumulatively creates how we as nations live, how we as earthlings live? Because it does. This one's called Blue Azures. And in this case, there are flowers called azures. This refers to butterflies. In spring, the blue azures bow down at the edge of shallow puddles and drink black rainwater. Then they rise and float away into the fields. Sometimes the great bones of my life feel so heavy. And all the tricks my body knows, the opposable thumbs, the kneecaps, the mind clicking and clicking, don't seem enough to carry me through this world. And I think how I would like to have wings, blue ones, ribbons of flame, how I would like to open them and rise from the black rainwater. And then I think of Blake in the dirt and sweat of London, a boy, staring through the window as God came fluttering up. Of course, he screamed, seeing the bobbin of God's blue body leaning on the sill and the thousand-faceted eyes. Well, who knows? Who knows what hung fluttering at the window between Blake and the darkness? Anyway, Blake, the hosier's son, stood up and turned away from the sooty sill and the dark city, turned away forever from the factories and the personal strivings to a life of the imagination. And aren't we all, as native earthlings, really sharing a life of the imagination? I mean, we're sharing a human dream. We're all part of the same healing story. And there's so many names for it, beautiful names. My Vietnamese Buddhist teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, calls it interbeing. A Lakota phrase, Mitakuye Oyasin, all my relations, is also a way to describe it. Another way to translate that beautiful phrase is, I am related to all things, and all things are related to me. The thing is, in our lifetimes, we're returning to that perception of relatedness. It was always true, but what's happening now is we're returning. It's a wonderful time to be alive. It's the end of an era of small thinking. And this morning we're using the power of poetry and its music to burst through small thinking and separateness. We're coming together really to return ourselves, one at a time, and by extension, the world to balance, to the balance of relatedness. And here's a Mary Oliver poem about relatedness that some of you, I'm sure, have heard this before. It's another one of her very well-known ones. And if you do know it, you probably remember where you were standing when you heard these startling words. Wild geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. But meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, across prairies and deep trees, mountains and rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. Wild geese. All of these are online, you can find them. That poem is tied right now for my favorite with the next one I'm going to share with you. I did pick out poems that are tied to spring. This next one is called Such Singing in the Wild Branches. It was spring, and finally I heard him among the first leaves, and then I saw him clutching a limb in an island of shade with his red-brown feathers all neat and trim for the new year. First I stood still and thought of nothing. Then I began to listen. Then I was filled with gladness, and that's when it happened. When I seemed to float, to be myself a wing or a tree, and I began to understand what the bird was saying, and the sand in the glass stopped for a pure white moment. And gravity began to sprinkle upward like rain rising, and in fact it became difficult to tell just what it was that was singing. It was the thrush for sure, but it seemed not a single thrush, but himself and all his relations, and also the trees around them, as well as the gliding long-tailed clouds in the perfectly blue sky. All of them were singing. And of course, yes, so it seemed, so was I. Such soft and solemn and perfect music doesn't last for more than a few moments. It's one of those magical places wise people like to talk about, and one of the things they say about it that is true is that once you've been there, you're there forever. Listen, everyone has a chance. Is it spring? Is it morning? Are there trees near you? And does your own soul need comforting? Quick then, open the door. The song may already be drifting away. Open the door and fly on your heavy feet. Fly. Such singing in the wild branches. Here's another one, simply called Spring. I don't know, Mary Oliver, the most profound poet that I know of, comes up with a title like Spring. Somewhere a black bear is staring down the mountain. Whoops, I'm gonna do that over. Somewhere a black bear has just risen from sleep and is staring down the mountain. All night in the brisk and shallow restlessness of early spring, I think of her 4 black fists flicking the gravel, her tongue like a red fire touching the grass, the cold water. There's only one question. How to love this world? I think of her rising like a blackened leafy ledge to sharpen her claws against the silence of the trees. Whatever else my life is, with its poems and its music and its glass cities, it is also this dazzling darkness coming down the mountain, breathing and tasting. All day I think of her white teeth, her wordlessness, her perfect love. And if that isn't an image, an unforgettable image to me of spring, to think of coming down the mountain, breathing and tasting, it captures spring for me. I'd like to read a poem dedicated to a group here in Ajijic next. It's called Buddha's Last Instruction, and I want to dedicate it to the Buddhist community here in Ajijic, the Sangha, called Heart of Awareness, that I have been privileged to become a member of. This poem has 2 voices, easily discerned on the page, but now that you have your giant ear all warmed up, I'm sure you will be able to follow it even on one oral hearing. Make of yourselves a light, said the Buddha before he died. I think of this every morning as the east begins to tear off its many clouds of darkness to send up the first signal, a white fan streaked with pink and violet, even green. An old man, the Buddha, lay down between 2 solid trees, and he might have said anything, knowing it was his final hour. The light burns upward and thickens and then settles over the fields. Around the Buddha, the villagers gathered and stretched forward to listen. Even before the sun itself hangs disattached in the clean blue air, untouched everywhere by its ocean of yellow waves. No doubt, the Buddha thought of everything that had happened during his difficult life. And then I feel the sun itself as it blazes over the hills like a million flowers on fire. Clearly, I'm not needed. And yet, I find myself turning into something of inexplicable value. Slowly, beneath the branches, the Buddha raised his head. He looked into the faces of that frightened crowd. Make of yourselves a light. I don't try that on just any audience, but that particular poem. But thank you for that opportunity. I have one more Mary Oliver poem, and that concludes the Mary Oliver portion, and then I have 3 short other offerings and a surprise. Mary Oliver loves light. This one has another one of those complicated titles. It's called the sun. Have you ever seen anything as wonderful as the way the sun every evening relaxed and easy floats toward the horizon and into the hills or the clouds or the rumpled sea and is gone? And how it slides again out of the blackness every morning on the other side of the world like a red flower streaming upward on its heavenly oils. Say on a morning in early spring at its perfect imperial distance. And have you ever felt for anything such wild love? And do you think there is anywhere in any language a word billowing enough for the pleasure that fills you as the sun warms you? As you stand there, empty-handed. On a personal note, in the year 2000, I had to choose one single book to carry with me on my back to the Mayan refugee village in Guatemala, where I was to live as a human rights monitor. And I chose Mary Oliver's New and Selected Poems, Volume 1, which was the only selected volume out at that time. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. I would pick a Mary Oliver book, if that was the only book I could have for the rest of my life. The Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai has an amazing piece I'd like to share about certainties and righteousness. I was supposed to read this at the Women's March here in January, but the schedule became too full. From the politics going on right now, of course, in the United States, we're getting such a close-up view of just what self-righteousness looks like from the outside. But what Amichai urges us to do is to notice it and root it out from the inside. The place where we are right. With thanks to Margarita Fetweiss for the translation. From the place where we are right. Flowers will never grow. Del lugar donde tenemos razón, las flores nunca crecen. In the spring, the place where we are right is hard and trampled like a yard. En la primavera, el lugar donde tenemos razón es duro y pisoteado como una corral. But doubt and love dig up the world like a mole, like a plow. Perdudas y amadas excava el mundo como un arado, como un topo. And a whisper will be heard in the place where the ruined house once stood. Y un susurro será escuchado en el lugar donde la casa arruinada una vez existió. And we all know this is true when we feel that way, when we're sure we're the only ones who are morally right. The ground is hard, no progress, no whispers are going to be heard, no peace can come through. But we're in this wave, we're in the great wave of transformation. Right now, all of us who are alive right now, it's a turning time of human evolution. And in the midst of the short view, chaos that is unfolding, I think we're being called upon to contribute a longer view, what Amichai calls the doubts and the loves that dig up the world. And a similar encouragement and invitation comes to us from Ellen Bass in her poem, To Love Life. She says, the thing is to love life, to love it even when you have no stomach for it. When everything you've held dear crumbles like burnt paper in your hands, your throat filled with the silt of it, then Then you hold life like a face between your palms, a plain face, no violet eyes, no charming smile. And you say, yes, I will take you again. I will love you again. We can do this. We're on the cusp. We are alive on a cusp of transformation. And humanity is crawling out of a chrysalis to new consciousness. And you know what? When the butterflies do it, their DNA is completely replaced. The DNA of a butterfly shows not one single trace of the being's previous existence as a caterpillar. And I think that's what humanity is in the midst of doing, changing our very identity, if they can do it. By transforming ourselves, one at a time, each of us. And our dreams, our human dreams, the human dream really is being transformed. And so before my last piece, I want to remind us that Mary Oliver's poems remind us that loving the world requires the imagination, that human faculty that can change everything. So if we each do our work of the imagination in the spirit in which Oliver does hers, jubilant love for the world, then we'll become one of those ordinary people who heal the world because their love for the world is even greater than their fear. We have the fears, but our love is greater. So I want to invite you to visit my website, susasilvermarie.com. You can sign up for my blog, check out my Ajijic slideshows, find out what services I offer, including poetry for all occasions, susasilvermarie.com. The last poem that I'm performing is my own. And after that, we're going to end with a fun finale. As soon as I finish the poem, 1,000 Years of Healing, I am going to be launching these paper airplanes into the audience, and each one has on it a Mary Oliver line, a winning Mary Oliver line, one of the lines from one of these poems. And the first 7 people who come up here and catch one of these and bring it up here to the stage to share their winning line aloud will receive a copy of all the poems that I did today. So, I wrote the poem 1,000 Years of Healing for the millennium. It's been reprinted and anthologized many times. I understand it's been used in many ceremonies all over the world. But I feel it is more applicable, more true today than it was when I wrote it for the year 2000. And I really mean that. Okay. 1,000 Years of Healing. So I don't need this. From whence my hope? I cannot say, except it grows in the cells of my skin, in this envelope of mysteries it hums, in this sheath so akin to the surface of the earth, it whispers beneath the wail and dissonance of the world. Hope's song grows until I know that with this turning, we put a broken age to rest, that we who are alive at such a cusp now usher in 1,000 years of healing. Winged ones and four-leggeds, mountains and grasses in each tree, all the swimming creatures, even we wary two-leggeds hum and call and create the changing song. We remake all our relations. We convert our minds to the earth. In this turning time, We finally learned to chime and blend, attune our voices to sing the vision of the great magic we move within. We begin the new habit, getting up glad for 1,000 years of healing. Okay, a duck or catch. I don't want to hit anybody in the face, so if it's coming towards you and you're scared, you don't want to, okay? Oh! Oh, I don't think I can get over there. Come on up if you got one. And Margaret will line you up. Let's see, I think that's 7. Well, what the heck. I'll keep going. Am I not doing any in the front? Okay. This is book. This is going to be can you hear me? The first Mary Oliver open circle group poem. Get ready to say your line aloud into the microphone. Line up, here we go. I don't know. Let me do it. Ready?
I was a bride married to amazement.
Yet I find myself turning into something of an inexplicable value.
Just love this one for me perfect. You do not have to be good.
What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
My work is loving the world.
Keeping my mind on what matters. Learning to be astonished.
Everyone has a chance. Quick, open the door.
The world offers itself to your imagination.
I want to step through that door full of curiosity.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's it. Wow, she disappears. Look at that. She's running off. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. What a wonderful performance, moving experience.